Hello, everyone. Welcome to Developing Palettes. I'm Aaron Loomis coming to you from the Drew Estate Studio. With me today is June Liu, Seth Geis, and from the Pastani Studio, John McTavish. How you guys doing?
Pretty
Doing great.
good. Doing good. Happy Monday, everyone.
That's right.
Live
Day after,
streaming is such an odd thing for us. We're usually pre-recording.
yes, exactly. So the day after Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all the fathers here and out there watching. I hope you all had a nice, relaxing weekend and uh, got some got some time to yourself to enjoy a cigar or whatever it is that you enjoy to do. Um, so this is the formula. This is a show that we put together many years back and have done a few of these. They're kind of hard to put together, but we were able to get a great guest to be able to help us out with doing another one. And we're excited to have him. So without further ado, we're going to introduce Enrique Sanchez from Global Premium Cigars. Enrique, welcome to the formula.
Hey, Aaron, how you doing? How you doing, guys? I thought you were talking about somebody else, but you're talking about me. Oh,
Talking about
now I
you.
feel honored.
Absolutely.
You're the man.
So
How's everything doing?
how was your Father's Day, Enrique?
Father's Day was wonderful. Time with family. The kids actually behaved well. My wife cooked. I mean, what can I complain? And they let me have a couple of drinks and a couple of cigars. I mean,
There you
I
go.
mean, it was heaven.
Nice.
What about for you guys?
Yeah, somewhat similar to that. Got a nice bit of time on my own. Had some family time in the morning and early afternoon, and then kind of in the evening got to relax a little bit on my own.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, I went to the urgent care of my youngest for an ear infection. So
Oh,
Oh,
that's not good.
well, happy father.
happy
Happy
about it.
Father's
That's the
Day.
way it goes.
June,
June.
did you get to
Um,
enjoy your first Father's Day? I guess it'd be your second Father's Day.
well, second one, yeah. I was solo parenting my 2.5-year-old baby girl, but Saturday was good because actually Aaron and one of our local buddies, Steve, we hung out and had a few cigars and
Yep.
drinks, so that was
Nice.
cool. Yeah.
Nice.
So,
A little early,
yeah.
a little pre-Father's Day hangout. It's cool.
Yeah.
That
So,
still counts.
yeah,
You can turn
exactly.
the entire weekend into a Father's Day weekend, right? I think that's within the boundaries of the rules.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
You
it's,
know,
ladies like to extend their birthday to a whole week or a whole month at times.
That's right.
So, if we take an extra day, it's not a big deal.
I don't know about I don't know about you guys, but I feel that we're being cheated here. I mean, it's we only get 1 day a year for the fathers.
Yeah,
Come on, really? We should get 363 days. Besides the Kids Day and Dia de las Madres, Mother's Day. The rest of the day should be us.
that's right.
That's but no, normally it's the other way around. I mean,
Yeah,
we get 1 day, the wife gets the rest of the days.
yes,
Like any
right.
happy marriage.
We need to start working on a barbecue grill and cigar day. I think and that way you don't gender it. You say it's grill and cigar day.
Yeah.
So anyone can participate.
But
I was
I'm
reading
sorry,
I was
we
reading
we
this
do
thing.
that almost every 2 or 3 days in my house. So it's
Perfect.
I was reading this thing where they were saying on Mother's Day, like all the restaurants are booked up, right?
Yeah,
And then on Father's Day, the expectation is the father barbecues for
Cooks.
everybody else,
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
and the restaurants are empty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually saw some restaurant people online complaining that more fathers were going out for Father's Day, and they're like, "What's going on with this? Why aren't they at home grilling?" And I'm like, "That's a bad look, man. That's a bad look."
Yeah. Yeah.
in Nicaragua in the social media there was a video. It's like, last minute rushing for getting for the Father's Day shopping.
Right.
Everything is going to be overwhelmed. The malls, and
Right.
they start putting videos or different videos of the mall. They're completely empty.
Right. Yeah.
Of course, nobody shop for us.
Exactly.
I do appreciate the Valentine's Day. Every year, somebody takes a video of the Valentine's Day because guys inevitably forget, and so you see like 110 guys trying to
Oh
go over
yeah.
the Valentine's Day cards and desperately trying to get it.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
hey, that happens.
All right.
We should recycle the ones. We put the ones
There you go.
for the not for the
Yeah,
last year, but for 2 or 3 years before, we
that's
can
right.
still recycle it,
Yeah.
and then it's always good to have plan B.
Yep. Exactly. All right. So in this show, we're going to get really deep into some tobacco talk. But before we do that, we want to get to know Enrique a little bit better and kind of his journey into cigars and tobacco. So, Enrique, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into tobacco and cigars, kind of from the beginning?
Yes, of course. It will be my pleasure to show you a little bit of the background. I was born and raised in Cuba. Then my family moved to yes, I'm 100% Nicaragua, born and raised in Nicaragua. My family been living in Nicaragua for over 200 years. I always make the joke because I've been smoking cigars for I don't know 30 something years, and every time they never let me smoke in my office. So
Mm,
I was the brilliant idea, to start my own cigar company, and then it moved to Miami, and here in the United States, which you can smoke almost anywhere.
right.
Of course, not in my house, but at least I'm smoking my cigar. So it's always a little bit of the joke on that one. It's like, yeah, doesn't matter if you have your own cigar company, you're not going to be able to smoke everywhere.
That's
So.
right. Yeah, yeah. So how did your first cigar experience occur for you? So
You
was it a family of kind of a thing?
Oh, Aaron, you shouldn't ask that question. It's just been one of my most embarrassed days ever. Many people normally when you smoke a cigar, you have somebody to tell you what to do with the
Yeah.
cigar. Sometimes you go to a cigar shop and you're like, yeah, that probably is gonna be his first cigar, but it would change it. I was not that lucky. So I was backpacking in Madrid, Spain. I was smoking cigarettes at the time, so I was not proud of about that now. And I'm there in Antorcha, waiting for a train to go to Toledo. So I'm smoking my cigarettes, I need to buy more cigarettes. So and I see all the gentlemen walking with the cigars. And I'm like, you know what? I'm in Europe. Why not? Let's try it. Let's see how that goes. So I goes to the tabaquera outside of the train station, and I got the. Sorry, can you guys see me now?
Yep. We see
Yep.
it.
Okay, sorry for that one. There you go. So I got to the tabacalera and asked for the cheapest cigars they have in the house. Well, I was high school budget. It's
Hmm.
backpacking in Europe was I think was there for 5 weeks. It was 10 or 11 countries. So money was something very very limited in that time. So I got I bought the cheapest cigars that they had in the house. I was no band or nothing. I went to back to my seat in the train station waiting for the train. I tried to light a cigar. It was the worst draw ever. You cannot draw the cigar whatsoever. And I'm trying to figure it out on my own.
Right.
What am I doing wrong? Because am I lighting it right? Or, you get all those questions. And after probably 20 something minutes, I grabbed a cigar and I threw it in the trash can. I said, this is not for me. So I go back to my cigarettes. So it was maybe a year after I was in my house in Managua, and my tío Jose Loy, my father's oldest brother, walks in with a Romeo Julieta Churchill from Cuba, and in his pocket, and I'm like, you know what, tío, why not? Because I would love to try again. See, let's see, maybe you can help me out here. I said, okay, sure. It's like, you know how to light it, how to cut it, huh? It's like, yeah, how to cut it. Oh, like maybe that was the problem they had with the one in Spain. I never cut it. That was why I had one of the worst draw ever. So he told me that how to cut it, how to light a cigar. And since I was smoking cigarettes in that time as well, sometimes you did inhale it. You did
Right.
the puff the wrong way, and that's when you start seeing the flying pigs going up in the air, and Pink Floyd is not playing the stereo, so it must has to be the cigar. So from that point on, I decide that if I'm going to be smoking cigars occasionally, at least I will know what to do, or how to handle that one. I had a lot of friends from my father's side, in which they're from La Isla, Cuba, and they actually were the ones to introduce me to the right way how to enjoy a cigar, what cigars I was looking for. So I was early age, probably around 15 years old, or 15, 16, when I truly started smoking cigars. I was introduced to Habanos SA. Nicaraguan tobacco, it was really hard to actually get your hand on it, because everything there was, first of all, it was early 90s. It was Nicaragua. It was starting to rebuild everything that was done before, and everything's a free zone, so you cannot have access to the tobacco that was being grown in Nicaragua. Everything that we produce is good for outside of Nicaragua. So that's when Habanos, I definitely love Habanos. I remember my Coiba Lanceros with a cellophane on it. So I used to have boxes of those stories in my room. I was the high school kid going to a cycle party. Always was my Habano in my pocket. And I don't know, most of my friends, we go to the party. They're like, get out of here. That stinks. Yeah, it smells. Yeah, I'm sure you guys had that little bit of the history too. But now, 30 something years after, they all come to my house. Where are the cigars? Like, really?
Yeah.
It took like 30 something years. That's fine. So if you can see how everything, I was not given the opportunity to be told the right way from the beginning. I had a lot to learn myself, experience myself. And that's not only about enjoying cigars as well, in the cigar business as well.
Yeah. And then how did it come about that you decided to start Global Premium Cigars?
Well, that's another interesting story. I got a meeting with Ernesto Plasencia, and then I was of course already smoking for a few decades cigars. And in the meeting, I want to be help him broken tobacco, not actually do blending, nothing like that.
Right.
So and I got a meeting, and we're talking and trying to pitch my business idea to him. And after 20 minutes of him listening to me with very patient, I'm very humble. He tells me, Enrique, that's what I do. I don't see what can you bring to the table. I mean, I've been doing this all my life. So I'm trying to persuade him, and then he's like, no. Then he turns the table on me and said, well, you had a passion for cigars. You had a passion and love for your country. If you can combine both of them, why don't you make your own cigar? I still was struggling with the idea, because I'm not looking for that one. It's like, I want to smoke everybody's cigar. And he told me, well, you can still do that, even though you have your own blends. I don't know if this day still do that. But and he's trying back and forth, trying to persuade me. And then I remember his exactly words. He said, Enrique, give me a chance. When Ernesto Placero tells me, give me a chance, it's like somebody slapped me in the face. And I'm like, wait a second, I should be on my knees asking this guy for a chance.
Right.
But now he put me in a spot in which, of course, I cannot say no. It's like I'm going to give you a piece you can't refuse. Yeah, of course. Now, there's no way on earth I can say no. It's like, but I don't know anything about tobacco itself. I know which cigars did I like, which cigars did not like. I didn't like, but that working with tobacco, even blending, I have no clue whatsoever. And he's like, well, I remember one of the idea he told me is like, Enrique, there's so many people taking proud of our or the Nicaraguan product. You have people from everywhere in the United States, Asia, Cuba, Europe, everywhere. Nicaragua. But you don't see a true Nicaragua. Actually, born and raised Nicaraguense de cepa, as we say in Nicaragua. It was the Nicaraguan flag going everywhere, taking proud of our product, of our country itself. It's like you were not only born and raised here in Nicaragua. You have a big love and passion for your country. Your family been here for over 200 years. It's not like you became Nicaraguan for the cigars. So if you can become that face of Nicaragua in this industry, that is a competitive advantage that nobody can take away from you, and you don't have to invent or try to act something that you are not. that's you. That's
Mhm.
exactly what. And I'm like, I don't know anything about the H2 whatsoever, so I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Then and so he put me in many corners. Let's try to see what can we do about it. I mean, the worst thing can happen, is I'm gonna come here more in Esteli. I was living in Managua at the time. I will come to Esteli more often and learn the process, learn about tobacco. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to smoke a lot of cigars. So how can you say
Right.
no to that?
Yeah.
So that going back to Placenza factory in Esteli for many times, and suddenly learn about the process, and then it comes the blending,
Mhm.
and that's how and I want to come out with 3 cigars, because I don't want to do just one blend, because it doesn't matter if you have a filet mignon for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. At some point you're gonna get bored of it.
Yeah.
So I want something variety. So I want a mild cigar, a medium cigar, and a full body cigar. So I always make it very simple: breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Mhm.
So of course, when we start working, and I remember, I think the first one we did work on, it was Emerald, 15 to Emerald. It was a breakfast cigar, and I remember the expression or Ivan, one of the master blender. Sorry, Ivan, Ricardo, when we first of all come up with the concept, what we're looking for, and they're the one guiding me, because this was completely new to me.
Mhm.
But the expression of surprise when we first try what we put together, and they're like, "Wow, that's something we were not." I said, expecting how to what would the outcome of all these concepts,
Right.
and in the moment I knew that we were in the right path. So it was, but it's an industry in which you never stop learning. Every
Mhm.
day it's something new to learn about.
Right. Very nice. All right, so let's talk about tobacco specifically. And the cigar that we're talking about today is the 1502 Blue Sapphire. But you also
Oh,
sent us 9 uh, churritos, right? That's the term you like to use to call these?
correct, churritos.
And so there's 3 Seco, 3 Viso, and 3 Ligero. And from Jalapa, Esteli, and Condega. So I'm going to defer to you to kind of give us a rundown on what we should do here to kind of get the best experience to determine how to smoke these. Should we smoke the full cigar at the same time? Should we wait? How should we kind of go about this kind of a tasting experience here?
No, it's something very interesting. I'm sure you guys know about the regions. Nicaragua is the only country in the world and actually has 4 different regions. Or I'm sorry, 4 main regions. There are other small regions around it, in which, but there's not, you cannot mass produce tobacco, but there are different ones. But the 4 main ones, of course, will be Jalapa, Condega, Esteli, and our beautiful island of Ometepe. So, and the beautiful thing is having like a 4 Bordeaux in one country, in which it's almost impossible. I mean, if you grab a tobacco from Jalapa and tobacco from Ometepe, from complete to the top to the middle of Nicaragua, they're completely different tobacco. Even from Jalapa to Condega, if you try one with the other, they're like, oh my God, it's completely different experience. So
Right.
it does. First of all, we have to understand that part of it. And then, of course, it's all of it, you have to understand that, in the tobacco plant, you have 3 part of it. You have Ligero, the ones at the top, Visos, the one in the middle, and Secos, of course, the ones in the bottom. Taking the difference between one or the others, the one Ligero is the one at the top, the leaf are bigger. They have a lot more strength to it. It has a lot more flavor to it, more incentive, but it has a lot less combustion
Hmm.
compared to the ones in the secos that were in the bottle. So the
Okay.
Visos will be right in the middle. So if you want to create a stronger cigars, of course you're going to be grabbing a little bit more of the or the ligeros up there, but you're going to have a little issue with combustion. So first you have to learn when you start doing the blending. So that is very important. So now, how do you or how can you understand what are we talking about for each of the region or each of the part of the plant. And there's not right or wrong answer to it, to be honest. I mean, you can say, oh, I start this way or start that way. What I would consider, always start with a seco.
Okay.
So the seco, because if you start with the strongest one, then it's might overpower you the one in the bottom, the secos. So that could give you and choose one region. If you guys said, let's start with Jalapa, the one on the top, let's start with the seco from Jalapa. And then one of the things, there's two ways to do it. Either we focus directly in Jalapa, and then you try the seco, and then you like the biso, then you try el ligero, and you try, and then you have all three of them at the same time lit up. Don't lit up all three at the same time, but try one, start enjoying, then try the other one, start enjoying, and then you can go back and forth with one or the other and see the difference.
Okay.
And beyond, and be sincere. The other one, in which a little bit more, that would be more horizontal. The other would be more linear. It will be get all three different secos for all the other regions. And you try one, then you try the other one, and then at the same time you try the other. So you might start understanding what's the flavor profile. Now, and before you do this, it's something very important, because I always make a lot of emphasis. When people ask me what flavors do they have, and something I never like to give you that information, and I'll explain you why. A flavor, it's a memory that you have. You can never say it tastes like blueberries if you have never tried blueberries in your life.
Right.
It's simple as that. So, and the more that the flavor you are more familiar with the flavor, is the more it's going to go to your conscious and subconscious. So it's something very simple. But remember, everybody in the world has a different memories of flavors. What we eat in Nicaragua is not quite the same what you guys eat here in the north, middle, east, west, south of the United States, in which it's a lot more diversified.
We got a Canadian here too, and you don't even know what they eat.
That's right.
So.
Moose.
I ate everything.
Yep. Well, that and how we cook it, and it was what we cook with it. The ingredients that we use is all so our memories will be completely different from somebody from Africa or South Africa, or East, West, or anywhere, or Europe, or everywhere in the world. So when you tell somebody it tastes like this, it's like going to the movies and telling you before you go to see the movie what will happen in the movie and how you're gonna feel each part of the movie. And then what's going to happen when you start smoking the cigar is like, well, he told me it has a little bit of floral, but I don't taste it. Is there something wrong with the cigar or something wrong with me?
Right.
So it's very unfair to do that.
Yeah.
In many of the seminars that we do, when we start talking about this, when I put in the presentation, what the experts said about flavor profile of each of the regions, and then everybody write down. And then I come out and say, okay, now give me, I give them a little piece of green apple. Now give me the flavor profile of the green apple.
Right.
Yeah. And everybody's looking at me like, well, a green apple tastes like green apple. Of course. Because you have tried that one before.
Yeah.
What about if I would have gave you a jocote? And it was like, a what? A who what? Jocote. It's a fruit that we eat in Nicaragua very often. Actually, one of my favorite fruits. But, I'm sorry, you don't have the memory. You cannot tell me it tastes like jocote.
Yeah.
So never think about those concepts. A ligero from Condega is going to taste like a ligero from Condega. A biso from Jalapa is going to taste like a biso from Jalapa. The more you're familiar with those profiles, the easier it's going to go to your conscious and subconscious. Right. And that's when you actually start learning about the blending, and not trying to force flavors in which they might not even exist out there to a blend that some people might not even think it that way.
Right. So Seth and John, I think I already saw you guys light up. Would you guys already light up?
I've lit up the jalapas.
You're doing the jalapa route?
I also went with the jalapa, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do this jalapa seco start.
North to south and seco up.
You guys want to do the secos? And they go to
no, we just did jalapa, so we're doing all jalapa, June.
So then we're gonna go jalapa seco, then jalapa viso, then jalapa ligero. Is that how we're gonna do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So we
So
were
what do
kind
you
of
think?
talking in the. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, Enrique, we were talking a little bit in the green room because some of us have been to Nicaragua and tasted tobacco, chiquitos, churritos,
Doritos.
Choritos.
sorry, churritos
Doritos?
Choritos.
before. Um, and so my experience with jalapa is that the taste profile, at least for Seco Viso, is that it's a very clean profile. It doesn't sit on the palate. It's not a like some tobaccos you'll smoke the tobacco and it's very coating. Like you can taste it for quite a while after you puff on it. And I find with jalapa, the profile is very clean, very crisp. You get the smoke and then you get a little bit of taste, but then you can't, if you clean your mouth, you can't really taste the tobacco anymore, and you kind of go back to the tobacco to get another flavor. So for you, what is the sort of attraction of jalapa? Like, why would you gravitate towards jalapa in a blend?
It's that's exactly the same question. If you ask a chef, why they gravitate more to black pepper compared to white pepper or green peppers from that region specific, it's all depends on the blend of what you're looking for. But we live in the area of the regions of Nicaragua to start talking about blending itself, which is completely different. It's like having another great example would be if you are a composer, a music composer, and but before you start composing, you have to know what the limitation of all the different instruments that you're going to be able to use. Now, you might have some favorites and that's how you get started in the tempo or everything you're looking for, and you start combining them together and put it there. So jalapa for me, it's that specific tobacco in which it has something unique, but it does not go well with every blend. There's no
Right.
a specific region of tobacco that is like a mathematic. I put it there and always does its magic. No, it has to be with the blend itself. So, but be able to do that, you have to get all the knowledge in your conscious and subconscious, of course, about what to do, and then what are you looking for? It's one of the key questions. So when I come up with a concept, then in my mind, I start blending. I start putting together the blend because I already know how the accordion compared to the piano, how to this, all those plays by itself and how they play together, and I start putting all those crazy ideas in my head, and then of course comes the reality. Let's try the true moment, or same with music. You can compose everything you hear, but now let's actually hear it. Oh, Jesus! It's like putting a cat inside the basket and started getting with the guitar. It's no, that doesn't go well. But it's only one way to find out. But everything starts with the characteristics of each of the churritos from all the different regions that you're gonna have.
So, thoughts, Aaron, June, Seth?
I mean, yeah, it's you can, I mean, the other qualities he talked about as well is just that, you have the Seco Jalapa, which is just very light. It's just a very kind of a simple, tobacco profile. I mean, there's some like faint mineral and earth qualities as well, but like when you're starting to like light up, the jalapa, the Seco, the Viso, and the Ligero, the other aspect is like look at how they burn. Like the Seco is just burning smoothly, beautifully. It's combustion's great on the aspect, but as you're moving up, you can tell also just by like the thickness of the tobacco as well. It's just there's more flavors, there's more strength to it, but there's also just it's not burning as well as like the Seiko. That's why all that tobacco plays an important role in the cigars, man.
Of course.
This so I lit up all the Seikos, and I'll go back and forth right now. But
Nice.
the Jalapa one, I agree, John. Very clean finish, right? Very light in terms of body, great combustion. this almost feels like it's interesting, right? Like when I go through these churritos, um, I want to just pick the one that has the most amount of flavors, right? The
Mm.
biggest amount of flavors. But that's not the right way to approach it because obviously it takes multiple different kinds of tobacco to blend one cigar, right? So I'm actually interested in hearing from Enrique, like, what is the aside from combustion, um, how do you go about blending, right? Like, for instance, out of all these secos, my favorite seco is Esteli, right? It just has so much more flavor. Um, I don't really know why you would use seco from Jalapa or Condega because Esteli has the most amount of flavors and the best flavors,
Yeah.
right? So you would, maybe you could walk us through your thought process of when you choose seco. I mean, first of all, how do you choose, right? Do you go, hey, I want X amount of Viso leaves, X amount of seco leaves, X amount of Ligero leaves, right? Yeah, just your
You,
thought process of that
you,
blending.
it's very interesting because there's not right or wrong answer in this one. Every blender, master blender, or creator, or whatever title you want to give them, is they have their own way of doing it. It's, and to be honest, I'll, I'll categorize there in the world mainly there are two different blenders. I say that the most knowledgeable blenders in which or the master blenders when I call it, in which there are people that are very knowledgeable about the tobacco, the seed, all the process and the feel, but when they blend for a market. For example, if they're gonna blend a cigar for Mexico, everybody knows that Mexico love their spice. So they're going to make sure that whatever cigars they come out, whatever blend they come out with, it has that kick of spice in which the Mexican market would definitely enjoy it so much. And so United States, it's more like a mile. That at least 80% of the market they like to go more a little more to the mile, and at least they only smoke one cigars a year. The market specific, but they're looking for something mild because they're not used to all those flavor profile. So all these master blenders, or I call the corporate blenders, they like to know all those things. And then you have I would consider myself in that one the artistic blenders. When we blend for ourselves. We get inspired of doing something, and we try to look for that undiscovered blend, undiscovered a concept, a cigar that it's there waiting to be found, and that's what we do. It's in my process. And I will tell you, for example, 51 to Nicaragua, the one with the white label. That's a puro Nicaragüense as well. It has tobacco for all the four regions. So it's one of the beautiful things, it's Jalapa, Condega, Estelí, and Ometepe. It's a puro Nicaragüense. It cannot be more Nicaraguan than of all four regions. And so my inspiration was with my mother, my wife told me she was pregnant for Enrique Fernando. So he will be Enrique Fernando Sanchez the third in this case. And after I get up from the floor or fainting, going backwards, and realize I'm going to be a father, the first thing that comes to my mind is that I want to create a blend. I was born and raised in Nicaragua. My kid it was born here in the United States, in Miami, or at least the closest point to the United States. And I want to create something so it represents his root, so he never forget where he's coming from. So my first idea was, okay, it has to be a puro Nicaragüense, no doubt. Then Nicaragua has to be well represented. That means all the four regions has to be in the blend. And then, the third point of looking for the blend, it was none of the regions has to or must stand out. It has to be Nicaragua as one. And I started with those three concepts. Now, the flavors and all the strain, all that, normally they find you in the way. You're not looking for them. If you're actually looking for flavors and strength, yeah, maybe you not be so much successful of creating something that it's completely different than everybody else. You have to be unique. You have to be completely yourself in that aspect. But remember, this is how I create. I create things. Some other people, and I do have a very high respect. And there's the other blenders in which they have done beautiful things in the industry, and I'm sure they have their own process. But my process, everything start was inspiration, and that time it was my Enrique Fernando. It was my kid, my inspiration, and to doing the blend. Of course, then comes the hardest part: a lot of try and error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing else you can do.
So John and Seth, where are you guys at now in the progression? Did you already light up all three?
Yeah, I've smoked all the jalapas.
I'm about to light up the Jalapa Ligero.
Yeah.
It was interesting
The
smoking
transitioning from the Seco to the Visa was already even just crazy.
Yeah, it was a big
Mhm.
jump between the two of those.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was perhaps anticipating a little bit more sweetness off the Viso Jalapa, and I actually kind of found it more. I don't know if the word I would use is grounded or neutral, which was interesting. So it wasn't. I didn't find it particularly strong in flavor, and I didn't find it, particularly sweet in flavor. It was just sort of a. I would almost describe it as because for me everything is cooking. Like I've been cooking for pretty much 43 years. So cooking. So to me, I would call it the sort of nutmeg of tobacco because it feels like, it's got a tiny bit of earthiness, it's got a tiny bit of sweetness, but like it's a very neutral profile. And tasting it, I feel like, you can see on its own, it probably needs something to support it, but you could also see how it would do a great job of perhaps accenting another tobacco and bringing out some characteristics of another tobacco. That was sort of my take as I was smoking it.
It's really, I mean, it's one of those. It's a big jump from the Seiko, and I think
Uh-huh.
Johnny really touched on like a lot of the qualities that I find with it. And it's just that it's still really balanced, but there's a little bit more to it. Um, but like that Seiko is just super smooth, super easy, just a very light profile, but it makes it anyone can smoke Seiko, that Jalapa Seiko. It's just
Yeah.
like it's a super yeah, it's just I mean, it's one of these things like I could smoke these just in the morning all the time. It's like
Yeah,
Yeah,
when it
with
went to the Viso, it seemed like it was a very bright, kind of in your face flavor
mm,
profile. And then moving
there's
to the
more
go
yeah,
ahead.
there's more sweetness in the Seiko than there is in that in the
Yeah.
Viso. There's like
But
a
then
really
going to the
distinct sweetness.
Lajero, it's like a step back and like kind of in your face, but
mhm.
you know that it's like a deeper flavor kind of a thing than
Yeah.
the so
Enrique,
Weirdly,
what's
sorry.
the so I like I know Esteli is really big on like that volcanic soil and like that's that they talk about that all the time and just the rich and the dark soil there. But Jalapas, I mean, that's further up in the north. Is it more? I mean, how would you categorize when you're in Jalapa versus Esteli? What's the main difference that you see just in like the
Well,
landscaping, I guess you could say.
well, it's let me put it this way. When you say Mr. Lee is a bit volcanic, remember Nicaragua's nickname is Tierra de Lagos y Volcanes. It's land
Yeah.
of lakes and volcanoes. So we have 21 active volcanoes in Nicaragua. So doesn't matter where you're at, you are next to a volcano
You're in the
somehow.
Yeah,
face.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's in which each volcano has a different characteristic. There's some in
Yeah.
which are a bit more clay, a little bit more rocky, more dark soil. Some volcanoes in which are a bit more light. So all those things varies completely. Esteli, it will definitely be a lot more hills, a lot more
Yeah.
mountains around
Mm.
Esteli. It's called El Valle Esteli. It's a valley. I say a valle in English. It's a valley.
Like a valley. Yeah.
Condega, definitely, Jalapa, sorry, it's definitely it's not valley. It's a little bit more, less mountains completely, a little not, but not completely flat at all. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Is it
Interesting.
drier in Jalapa than Esteli?
Uh, Humidity in that aspect. That's a very good question, and I don't think that it's going to be that dry completely compared to Esteli. Of course, it's
Yeah.
not going to be more much different in dryness in that aspect. Even that Esteli, of course, you got a little more the rivers. So we used to have a little bit more present
Yeah.
with rivers. That's for
Mm.
sure.
Yeah.
Is there a way to generalize within each area of like Candega, Jalapa, Esteli, the overall kind of flavor profile of the tobacco that it brings, or is that hard to do?
Well,
Is there a correlation?
there are some people in which they like to go a little bit more deep in the flavor profiles, and they say jalapa is a little bit more floral, a little more fruity. They try to be a little bit sophisticated as wine. They trying to put you in the box of flavors profiles in which everybody knows and everybody can be familiar to it. In my case, I don't like doing that. But yes, most of the experts they said is jalapa will be a little bit more floral, a little bit more fruity in general.
What I find very interesting is when you taste the jalapa ligero and then go back to the Viso jalapa, um, the how much it changes the Viso. So when my palate clears, the Viso has a profile, but then when I come back to it after tasting Ligero, it's amazing how or interesting how the Viso changes on my profile on my palate. There's characteristics that I wasn't tasting before. There's brighter notes that I wasn't tasting before, and I always find that fascinating. The sort of interplay of different tobaccos, where, and to me, it's a little bit like whiskey, where if you leave it and you come back to it, your palate acclimates and your nose acclimates, and all of a sudden you're tasting or you're getting aromatics that you weren't previously getting. And I'm definitely finding that with the interplay of the three tobaccos, the Seco Viso and Ligero.
Well, that's one of the beautiful things when you get to experience these memories, is that the transitions between one or the other memories, and how they combine together, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes how they do not combine together.
Right.
But it's a transition from one or the other. It's going to be a transition if you do vertical, horizontal, or if you jump one of the others. It's interesting to get those experience.
I do like the way that you put it when you said, if you haven't tasted, this particular fruit, how can you possibly describe the characteristics? So in that way, you have to taste the tobacco to understand what that tobacco is. And sort of one of the comments we get very often when we're talking about when we describe cigars in terms of flavor profile, one of the common ones we get is, of course, leather is a very common profile in a lot of cigars. And so people will say, well, how do you know what leather tastes like? And my response is, well, have you never put a leather keychain in your mouth? Have you never ridden a horse and put the reins in your mouth temporarily like, have you not had that experience? Because I've experienced that dozens and
Sure.
dozens of times. So of course, like you say, if you don't know what that tastes like, well, then you couldn't possibly describe. I mean, you could probably describe the aroma of leather, but you wouldn't necessarily have the memory of what a tanned leather versus a worked leather versus a raw leather. And I like the way you put that.
Yeah, it's so about the memories. We're talking about only flavor profiles right now, and I believe aroma it's one of the most deepest sense of all the five senses that we have as a human being. Because the aroma it's it's a deeper memory than actually flavor, in my opinion. It's like when you're walking or you go through like Macy's, when you pass by with all the different perfumes and they're trying to bombard you with all the aromas. And you're like, oh, come on, really? And then suddenly you feel this aroma, and without you even knowing, you move, shifts, changes. You get more relaxed. You get more angry. You get more alert. And maybe it was the perfume that your girlfriend back in high school used to use, and you're like, oh my god, wait a second, but you don't remember about her, but your memory tells your body how it's gonna react to it. That is a lot more deeper, and I don't think human being we have not ever had learned how to go more deep to the Roma area. But I see it many times, and they're smoking a cigar. Normally, it's a lady, and the lady is like, oh, like, oh, I guess you don't like cigars. No, I can't stand the aroma. Now, let me ask you something, if you don't mind. If somebody in your family used to smoke some type of tobacco. Oh yeah, my uncle John. So, what memories do you have? Oh, he was an asshole. How those memories associate with the aroma. It's incredible. And you also has the other way around. I have some that, oh my god, I love the aroma. It's like, oh, man, do you smoke cigars? No, I do not. But my grandfather, oh my god, he used to smoke cigars every day. Like, what memory do you have? He's a sweet guy. He was one of the sweetest person I ever met in my life. So how that interesting concept of those memory jumps to you, and tells you and mandates your memory and your body how to react to different atmospheres. It's something completely incredible. And when we do blending, we have to know all those characteristics, and we have to find a way how to make the beautiful symphony, a beautiful harmony.
All right, so I went with Condega Seco as the next.
All right.
I'm on Seco. Whoops, I went to Esteli. I messed
That's right.
up.
That's right.
I'm going the right one.
All right. Condega. I love Condega. We were talking about that in the green room. And I mentioned
This
that
is John's blue cheese.
yeah,
John's
I
blue
always
cheese.
I describe Condega as sort of the blue cheese because it's a little funky. It's got a slightly funky aroma, in a good way. And I describe it like blue cheese because blue cheese is one of those things that's very divisive. There's a lot of people that don't like it, but there's a lot of people that do like it. And I've come across many cigar makers who use Condega, but they say that they themselves aren't a fan of the aromatics or the tobacco. And I've found my subjective experience has been that people are very divisive on Condega, which I find kind of interesting because I haven't seen that in the other tobacco regions in Nicaragua. But Condega seems to be one of those that seems to be a little divisive.
Why do you think? Because of its floral aspects?
I think it's just whatever the characteristic is of the tobacco, it seems to be it drives a very strong sense memory for people where they either like it or they hate it, and there's no sort of in between. Like when I ask people when I've done a component tasting before, like, what do you think of Condega? And people say, oh, I really like this, or I really like the aromas, and some people say, like, I really don't like the aroma, I really don't like the flavor. And that's kind of interesting to me.
It's something very interesting. I'll go back to the blending. Let me see if I can explain this very well. How many people enjoys peppers?
I enjoy peppers.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's go for black peppers, the one that most of the people are going to be more familiar with, the
Right.
black pepper. Will you be eating black peppers, just black peppers every day?
Right.
No.
Right.
No.
Okay, exactly. Because why will you do that to yourself? Of course not. But what about if we combine it with all the things? Oh my God, what a second, especially when you have a great salt and you put together a little bit more butter, and you put a little bit garlic, and you put rosemary to it. And you know what? Let's throw a ribeye as well. So, well, there you go. How pepper tastes. It's great touch. It's perfect. what about if you do all of those ingredients without pepper? Yeah, it's most likely it's going to be okay, but pepper will give you the perfect touch. So why only talk about one specific regions in which it could be a good or bad? Let's talk about the blend itself. Does that blend makes it the tobacco in that specific blend makes the magic out of the blend out of that cigar? Yes or no? Okay. Oh yes, actually it's a perfect blend. Okay, great. So you did a great job. You did a great job putting the right amount in the right position in the right location with Condega. But just a puro from Condega, same as if you grab a puro from only Esteli, or grab a puro only from Ometepe or Jalapa or any, it's not going to be that complex. That it's not going to be a great memory itself. So, and I understand your point of view. And when people say, yeah, normally I don't, Condega is not my cup of tea, or yes, it is, 50-50. I will tell you something. 1502 Ruby, it's more representative of Condega, and it's our best seller worldwide.
Mhm.
Why? Because we perfectioned the blend. If I would have put a lot more pepper, black pepper, in that steak, maybe 50% of the people would have said, I don't like it.
Mhm.
Right.
But if you put the right amount, that 50% could easily go to 85, 90%, or even higher on that one. So it's always about the blend itself.
So you're right, John. That I've never smoked a lot of tobaccos individually to really get flavors and things like that, but the Condega does definitely have its kind of little musty funkiness to it. So, and I enjoy
And it's
it.
yeah, I mean, and I think what's interesting, of course, is that the going from the Seiko Condega to the Viso Condega is a different experience than going from the Jalapa Seca to the Jalapa Viso. Like it's it's not the same progression.
Of
It's a
course.
different progression. Even the strength level, I wouldn't say that the two Visos are at the same strength level. To me, the Condega, it's not a big jump up, but I'd say it's a noticeable increase in body and strength, call it a point to a point and a half up from the Jalapa. It's noticeable. It's noticeable in my mind, having just had the Jalapa and now having the Condega.
Yeah, for me, especially when I compare like Jalapa to Esteli, that's where the jump really happens. A
Mm.
significant jump, right? In the sense of intensity. Like we're not here to talk about specific flavors, right? It's all subjective. But like intensity of flavors, but the offset of that is for some of these Estelis. So I smoked the Esteli Seco and the Esteli Viso so far. And especially comparing Jalapa to Esteli, not only is the intensity of flavors increased, but there's almost like this unpleasantness of like a bit too much, right? Like it gets stronger. It gets there's a bite to some of this Esteli components, right? That I'm not sure from a just component testing that I really want in a cigar, right?
Yeah.
But of course, everything is contingent upon the actual blend you're going for, right? Like if your blend is already just dialed up to like intensity of 9 to 10 in terms of like flavors and strength, you gotta like pick something in jalapa so that you could have it burn better and create more than like softer flavors. I could see that happening, but um, yeah, Esteli is like it's a big jump in
It
terms of
is.
Have you smoked
it's
the
a really big
Condegas?
jump compared to especially jalapa. Like for
Have you done
me,
the
component
Condegas?
testing,
Have you been doing the
yeah,
Condegas, June?
I have. I haven't touched Ligero at all yet, though. I smoked all the other six.
I would be interested to hear you, Jim, your point of view once you try the ligero or compare the ligero from Jalapa to Esteli.
Mm,
That would
Mm.
be a very interesting see transition. How does it go?
yeah. So far, my palate is shifting towards everything jalapa in terms of Iso Seiko. Like,
Mm.
you know,
Well, remember, there's no wrong or right answer in this.
Yeah.
What we're doing right now is decomposing the symphony and listen to each individual instrument, music instrument. So which one is your favorite? Because you can always have a favorite, but what we're doing is compose it completely.
The so I just lit up the Condega Lajero, and a lot of sweetness that I wasn't expecting, which is interesting.
It's a really like
It's really good.
a complete tobacco almost,
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, it doesn't burn very well, but
No.
it does. The flavor is good.
Oh,
I mean, you obviously can.
you're talking
when
about the Seiko Condega not
No,
burning well?
Lajero,
No, the
Lajero.
Lajero Condega.
But I mean, it's apparent, and when you're smoking the Toritos, I think it's very obvious. If you haven't experienced the burn profile of a Seiko Viso and Lajero before, where I set the Seiko down, take a puff off a Viso, try to puff off the Lajero, and the Seiko is still burning away, no problem. Still sort of smoldering there, and I can come back and I can light it up, and I don't have to touch it up with a torch. It's still burning away.
Yeah.
Where the Viso, maybe takes a couple puffs to get it back up and running.
Yep.
Well, it's all about. I mean, it's all about. I mean, that's like blending. That's getting the tobacco to work off one another. I mean, everyone said, and Enrique has said, I'm sure as well. It's just that there's sometimes the role of tobacco in the cigar is not to alter the flavor profile being delivered, but help with combustion, I imagine.
Exactly. It's a symphony. There's some instruments in which they will help you to keep the tempo going. Some instrument what we do it's going to help you a little bit with the melody. You have to put them together. It depends on what your inspiration comes from and what you're looking for to create. And that's the beauty of that one. But to be able to do that, you have to have those memories. And I do it most a lot of times. Sometimes you know what? Let me go grab a biso from Jalapa because I'm just a churrito and just keep those memories fresh all the time. So it's very important to be able to do that, to be able to blend and to be able to understand the cigars, the blends that we create as blenders.
June, in the symphony of developing palates, you are the oboe.
That's right. Which is funny because quite often you find yourself with a fuller bodied cigar, you tend to be sort of hit or miss on a fuller bodied cigar, right? Like you tend to be you either like it or you hate it. Like it's either, hit or miss.
Yeah.
Whereas
I think
Aaron tends to sort of gravitate towards the lighter end of the spectrum.
Well,
I just gravitate to whatever spectrum the acid is dropping me that day.
Yeah.
So, Enrique, what would you say you smoke the most of? Like out of all your blends?
all of them. I definitely enjoy them very much. It all depends on the mood. It depends on the time of the day. For example, if I'm not working that much in blending, in which I usually do it, especially in the morning, that's when I start working on my blends. But that's how like I said, how I do things. I will go back later on to explain you how I do the thing with the blending. But normally I'll go for a 1502 Emerald or 1502 Nicaragua. 2 out of 5 is got the strength, and it's a medium plus body, a great complexion, a great flavor as it is. That was a cappuccino right after breakfast for me.
Right.
It's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect. Then after lunch, I'll either go for a 1502 Ruby or 1502 Aniversario 10. That one is made by AJ Fernandez. So it's a 3 out of 5 skin, both of them. So it's a great balance for that, and especially I like to enjoy it was a good espresso. That's great. After a good steak dinner, 1502 Black Gold. I created 1502 Black Gold to be that cigar after a good steak dinner. A steak dinner was a 5 out of 5 got the strain, which you have 3 ligeros, 2 from Nicaragua and one from Mexico, San Andres, Mexico, of course, Casa Torrant. but I blend to that one. It's if you had a little lighter or not that strong dinner, I would go for a 15 Blue Sapphire. That would be up to me. Sometimes I like to Lanceros are my favorite vitola. So a 51.2 Blue Sapphire Lancero in the middle of the afternoon for me will be a perfect with a nice weather, beautiful view. So it all depends in that aspect. It depends what are you looking for, what you feel in the mood in the moment for that.
Yeah.
That's one of the great advantages when you have a great portfolio in which
Yeah.
each of the blend we created is we perfection it to have his uniqueness. It's not like we change the wrapper from the Emerald to the Ruby and then here we go, now you have a new cigar. No. We took our time. And when I talk about the time, and I definitely I'd like to explain a little bit more. Sometimes
Oh, my swapping earbuds.
okay, there you go. No, all right. So sometimes what happens is when normally I am not in the aging room when or not sorry not in the blending room when I create blends. Like I said, remember before I told you that everything I come up with the blends in my head. Then I come up with the concept. I come up with the idea. I know what tobacco we're going to be using. I send the information to the factory. I decide which factory I'm going to be working with. Remember we work with 3 factories at the moment, and then which tobacco we're going to be using for which farm. All that it's in my head. I send the information to the factory. They put together, give me a different alternative, variety of this one, variety of that one. Let's work that one. Put it in the aging room. Then 6 months after, I get to try them. But wait a second, what that blend would taste in 12 months or 16 or 20 months after that?
Yeah.
It's only one way to find out. It's me trying it. So I have my humidor with all the different blends that I'm working, and sometimes let me try this one, and I see the notes, and because I'm okay, this is from this. I get all the characteristics with the blend. I'm enjoying it, trying to think if this unites with the concept that we were working on it, and then I can start doing my twist and start working. So then I say, okay, you know what? Let's rebalance that one. Let's put this, and that. Then I have to wait 6 months after that one to try it again. So for me, come out with blend is something that I normally do once every 1 or 2 years because for me it takes a lot longer to perfection it. I'm very. My wife always give me criticize me that one. We say, "Oh, of course, you're a Virgo. You have to be a perfectionist." Well, honey, I'm sorry. I will never do anything just to do things. I like everything to be as perfect as it is. That's why I choose you. There you go. See, there
There you
that
go.
was
Very nicely
that was
done. Very nicely done.
perfectionist. I'm gonna use the line. Yeah, I just got inspired in that one. Honey, later, honey. But the idea is that's what I love doing it. How to make everything perfect and see how the tempo, how the flavor, how the aroma stays, how the aftertaste stays. You sit down next to me, how the aroma reflects on you. You can have a great blend, you smoke it, but it doesn't smell good. You're not gonna have a lot of friends around you.
Mhm.
So all those friends, you have to take in considerations. And very important is that when we take that to the market, I already experienced all those things. So when you grab it from the humidor, it's the best expression that ever is going to be because I try almost all of them.
Right. All right. I'm moving to Seco Esteli here.
Mm.
You can even tell the Seiko Esteli leaf is a little thicker.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like smoking the crust of a baked bread. If you take the crust off a baked bread.
All right.
But that baked bread for me has a bit of a char on it, which I don't like.
On the Seiko?
Yeah, the Seiko Esteli it's got this bite to it. that I'm not a fan of. It's almost like this,
Really?
like burnt, like almost like a little charry burnt bread sort of a thing. I don't like that flavor in cigars. Like it's just one of those personal things I just
Yeah. I
dislike.
can see how you would get there. I don't get that. I don't really get that level of toastedness on the like of the crust, but I could see how if it was a little bit further you could get that.
You know, whereas like the jalapa seco is just right up my alley. It's
Yeah, it's very
you know
balanced.
full balance, full retro. No, it doesn't clog you up. It doesn't overpower you. It's got a nice, almost like a creamy, like perfumey floral aspect to it that I love.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that.
You're a very sensitive being, June.
Thank you. I also drink hazmat whiskey and I like it, oddly.
Well, certainly we're, or at least I'm drinking, smoking this on a clean palate. But of course, in my brain, I'm imagining, having some Florida Cana with each of these tobaccos, which wouldn't work in when we're tasting the individual components. But in my brain, I'm like, how wonderful a Florida Cana 12 or Florida Cana 18 would be with these tobaccos.
Of course, with Centenario Florida, you cannot never go wrong with those. That would be a perfect way to relax and enjoy.
So
So
Enrique, I
Enrique,
smoke.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, you.
I was going to skip forward. Oh, okay. I'll go.
Yeah, you go.
So I smoked through the Ligero. Everything I said about Jalapa and Ligero does not is the opposite. I think the Esteli Ligero is fantastic. It's rich, it's powerful, like especially on the retro, it is like it's right there in your nostril. That's
Yeah.
gonna like for me, I can't even fully retro this Esteli Ligero, but I appreciate it, right?
Okay.
Um, good flavor, clean flavor, rich, powerful strength. I like this Esteli Ligero a lot. And the Jalapa is my least favorite of the Ligeros.
Oh, interesting.
No, it's interesting.
And one you love you definitely enjoy the seco, but you don't like very much the ligero, and the other one is completely the opposite.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
interesting.
I
That
prefer
that's
Jalapa for Seco Viso. I hands down prefer Esteli Ligero.
yeah,
Have you guys
interesting.
gotten to the Estelí
It's really
Almost.
good. I could
No,
smoke
I'm
this
just
by
doing
itself.
I'm
the
just doing the
VISO at
Visa
the
right now.
moment.
No, I'll
So
probably get,
the thing
figure
you're
out to
talking
eat.
about, June, about the Esteli that you were getting off the Seiko, I get a lot more off the Viso. So I would describe it as sort of a earthy minerality to it.
Mm.
So it's in terms of comparing the Condega, which I thought was very balanced, very neutral, and the Esteli Viso is a lot more intense. Like if we talk about intensity out of a scale of 10, where the Condega for me was sort of a 6.5, and the Jalapa was maybe a 4.5, 5. I think the Esteli, certainly 7, 7.5, 8, like even the Viso. It's just a very full smoke. It's a very full aromatic. It's a very full flavor just off the Viso. Like
Oh,
to
wow.
me, the Viso is so full on the Esteli, you could almost use it as a Ligero. Like if you combine it with some of the lighter tobacco.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
It's a big jump from that Seco to the Viso.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's a
Lots
good
of,
way to. That's a good way to want it. The other tobaccos, the move from the Seco to Viso was a lot. It's a lot smoother transition, and the Esteli, it's a lot heavier of a transition.
really back of the palate, too.
Yeah.
I love this exercise because now you guys start thinking like a blender.
Mm.
Now that you decompose it and now you in your head you start composing it and see
yeah.
what is going to be great with what,
Right.
and that's the beauty of doing this exercise.
Yeah, like immediately my head goes to the Esteli Viso and the Condega Ligero would be just a wonderful combination because the sweetness of the Condega I feel like would balance out the sort of earthy components of the Esteli Viso. I feel like they would be very complementary.
Right?
I'm gonna smoke them at the same time, man.
I'm going to do it.
That's
I'm doing
the
it.
next step. Put them together and smoke
Mhm.
one.
All right, I'm going to light up the Ligero because I do love
Yep.
Ligero.
Let's do it.
And I mean, you can even tell just looking at the texture of it, just how thick that Esteli Ligero is. It's going to take a little bit of torch to get it lit
Yep,
too.
exactly.
You know what's
Yeah,
crazy? Wait,
I was
what are you
using my
smoking,
pick, and I
John?
was like,
What are you smoking, John? The
Just
Viso
lit up
Esteli?
yeah.
And what else?
Nothing combined yet.
So you're just doing the Ligero Esteli now, right, John?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just firing it up.
Well,
It's
that's
even
intense.
crazy. Look at the difference between like smoke like a Viso Esteli and then a Ligero Condega.
Yep.
And it's even the Viso Esteli is, I
Very
mean,
thick.
not surprisingly, um, just stronger and more pronounced.
Of course, June. I don't have an issue retrohaling the Esteli Ligero, but I also really like the whole range of tobacco. So, I appreciate nuanced and subtle, but I can also really enjoy this, much more fuller bodied Ligero. And like it almost reminds me of because we were talking about coffee earlier. So to me, the jalapa is sort of that cappuccino, very creamy, very
Mhm.
smooth. Whereas a Ligero Esteli it's an espresso. Like it's a, very full, very strong, but lots of flavor, but also lots of strength.
Well, interesting that you did mention that. The one we use a lot more, of course, Ligero Esteli in our blend, it will be 52 Black Gold.
Mhm.
Because Black Gold in Spanish is oro negro.
Yeah.
Everybody you think about black gold here in the United States, you directly think about Texas.
Yeah.
The Texas tea, of course. But in Latin America, we used to have a oro negro product in which it was way before even Texas was even founded.
Yeah.
Any idea what product was it?
Um,
Our coffee,
Oh,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
or
there you go.
black gold oro negro. So yes, when you try a 1502 black gold, you're gonna feel a lot more that characteristic that you just mentioned. It's a little bit more of the rough coffee in that notes
yeah.
in that. But of course, it's not only a ligero forestali. It has some other combination. But it will be a little bit more aiming a little bit more to that.
Man,
So
the
I
Ligero
could.
Esteli, that's the way to wake up in the morning right there. I gotta just get out of bed. I gotta get out of bed and smoke one of these while I'm wrangling the kids.
Then you will be like a Chihuahuan crack, going around it
Mhm.
nonstop.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Time to go.
Let's
Well,
go.
you need to get things moving in the morning. You have a nice espresso and a Esteli Ligero, and you'll be well on your way.
That's the way to go. Mm.
I really want to try this Condega Ligero with the Viso Esteli.
It's always fun to go back to this little jalapa seca. There's not much left of it, but
I found my blend.
Yeah.
I'm
Which
going
is it?
Jalapa Seco, Jalapa Viso, and Esteli Ligero.
That will be for the long fillers. What about the binder and the wrapper?
Oh,
Ah,
I don't know.
Now, yeah, now you get way more complex doing that.
now
Well,
it's
okay, well,
getting
let's
more
talk through
complex.
that. How does that factor in terms of binder and wrapper?
well, the binder
It
binds.
depends. It depends on the blend. There are some blenders, and what I've been hearing this, like, 70% of the flavor you're gonna get it from the wrapper. Not necessarily. If I put you three ligeros and the long filler, that will compete against the wrapper.
Yeah,
There's no doubt in that
that's
aspect.
gonna overpower the wrapper,
Exactly. So
especially if it's a
there's
lighter wrapper.
Mm.
exactly. So I always said it depends on the blend. There's some blends in which there's some tobacco, and depends what part of the cigar you're going to be using, it will actually stands out. In my case, I like to balance things, and that's very important. That's one of the reasons that why we use Maduro Natural as a wrapper. Remember, Maduro. The main reason of doing a Maduro is give you the sweetness, so it melts down the strength of the ligero. So it has the
Oh.
balance between that one. So
Do you?
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. No, I was just gonna ask, like when you're looking at the blends, do you ever, like in your opinion, or do you ever focus on like the wrapper that you want to work with first, or is it one of those you're gonna get there? It just depends.
I don't know if I start with a wrapper or the long filler. Sometimes I start one way or the other. I mean, there's no wrong or right answer in that aspect.
Yeah,
For me, like I said, I like to start with a concept and then start putting it together. And I
yeah.
do the blend in my head and say, you know what, I don't think the wrapper is gonna go well. But also, then let me show you another a little bit more difficult area. Okay, wait a second. Okay, you're gonna be using a ligero from Esteli for which farm?
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
There you go. Plasencia. That's a quite different work. That's AJ Fernandez. It's and not saying which one is better than the other, and saying that it's completely different work in that aspect. Well, wait a second. What kind of seed are you going to be using that? Are you going to be using a Croy? Are you going to be using a Habano? Which seed are you going to be using? And that will give you a different perspective as well.
Yeah,
So even if I gave you a ligero, a churrito ligero for an Esteli, for different farms, for different, yeah, you're smoking Esteli ligero. There's no doubt, but
but it's a matter
there
of
it will
yeah,
be a slight difference one of the others. So
yeah,
that's one of the things when you start blending. Now you made it a little more complicated of how to do the blends together.
Right.
That's only in the farm part of it. What about the fermentation process? Because
Right.
like everybody does a different fermentation process.
Right.
Everybody's looking for something different. So that makes things a little more difficult if you don't know or you don't have those memories and the knowledge of the process that everybody's using.
So I feel like I'm a bit of a mad scientist here because I'm just combining now Seikos and Visos and Seikos and Ligeros. And what's fascinating is the Esteli Seiko with the Condega Ligero is just absolute magic. It brings out so much richness out of the Condega Ligero. And then conversely, if I go Seiko Esteli with Seiko or with Ligero Esteli, it doesn't work. It's completely discordant.
Mhm.
This sort of tobaccos almost fight each other, and I would not put them together, at least not without something else, because they just don't seem to work together.
Yeah.
So, John, what'd you say that was with the Condega Ligero? What were you pairing with
Yeah,
that?
so the Condega Ligero with the Seiko Esteli.
Mm.
So take a puff off the Seiko Esteli, and it's a little funky. But then take a puff off the Condega Ligero, and to me, the Condega Ligero just becomes almost like a chocolate bar.
That's right. The Condega Ligero has a lot of like roasted coffee, chocolate kind of tones to it,
Mhm.
you know?
And like I said, when with that Seiko Esteli, it really super fires all of those. Like it's, the Seiko Esteli is almost lost when you do that. But as a result, that Condega Ligero just is just amplified so much. Let me
There's
try at the
certain
same time.
so I don't get this a lot in cigars, but when I get this, I absolutely love it. Um I assume it's Ligero, but there's this Ligero from whatever farm curing process, whoever cured it. Sometimes it could get really Like it's still very rich, powerful, but sometimes it has this like oiliness to it on your
Mm.
palate. It's like a slickness, right? And it's oily. I love that flavor. That more so mouthfeel, right? That's not more really a flavor. Um, I feel like I've had the first time I've had that, so a long time ago in 2016. There's a small group of us um, when I was active on cigar.com forum. And we got invited to stay at AJ's compound. And we went to the curing bar, and then he took he said it was Esteli Lajero. He ripped the leaf and made little Puritos off of it. And that's the first time where I thought, oh my gosh, this is so oily. It was extremely strong. Just two draws, my head was just spinning. And this is off of a full meal. But I remember it being so rich, so oily, so slick on the palate. And I've always thought, man, people should get a hold of this and start using it. It, yeah.
So Enrique, for the Blue Sapphire, for the filler components, do we have something similar out of these samples that we could put together to try to smoke before we light up the cigar with the binder and the wrapper on it to get a feel for just like what the filler looks like?
Well, it's interesting because you do have them actually. In you have all the components that we use in the 52 Blue Sapphire because
Okay.
we use those three regions. We use Jalapa, Condega, and Esteli.
Okay.
So even the wrapper, in which is Jalapa Maduro Natural, in which is really tough to make. There are only few families and actually can make that a specific wrapper in that one. It's all and everything you guys have it there. So how you put all those things together and combine it to have the perfection that we use in the Blue Sapphire, that's the fun part.
Well, now we're going to put it to the test. I'm going to light up this Blue Sapphire.
Yep.
Man, I just
Yeah, me
combined
too.
three that were great together, and then I lost track of one of them. I just kept
Yeah, so that's a
smoking
good question. So Enrique, when you're working on a blend, how do you document kind of what you're playing around with so that you don't get lost in like knowing kind of what you're working with and the ratios? Like, do you take notes while you're doing it so that you're kind of remembering where you're at and you know exactly so you don't have to like you don't miss it and you have to try to recreate it?
Yes, I do have a lot of notes and remember over the time. I mean, 6 months, 12 months, or 8 months, or whatever months, whatever, exactly the same lens will give you a different perspective. That will not only let you know what are you looking for, if it's quite right or not, but also how long it takes to able to perfection it, to able to be aged and the level to be able to be ready to smoke it. So all those things I do I like to use notes. It's no doubt, but the best note I always use normally it's my memories. I
Right.
always put everything in my head. I don't know why I have some people that love writing. I'm not much of the writing. And actually, I don't remember the last time I used a pen. Normally, I'm with my phone texting or putting notes in my phone. But I like to have the feedback because even that I do have a great memory. 12 months from now for all different blends that I'm working, it can get a little bit lost there. So
Right.
yes, I do some notes.
All right. And then if I recall correctly, the unique kind of finish on the foot, do you call it the flavor lock? Is that
Flavor lock,
The cigar lock.
cigar lock?
cigar lock.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, and that's actually one of the few patents in the industry.
Okay.
Each in the back of the boxes of all our boxes, you see the patent number, and that's what part of my innovation to the industry. Because one of the things I really hated. Remember, I was a cigar aficionado way before I was a cigar blender, if you want to call it. It's funny. They always try to put those, master blender, master Yoda, master whatever. In the end, a master blender, if you want to call it, it's no different as a Archimedes. You are where you're doing is working in the transition in the
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Not yet.
So, there you go.
You hear me?
Yep.
There we go.
Okay, sorry. There you go. Changes the headphones. So what the master blender, what it does is the watcher or like any Archimedes, a transformation from one material to another material. You know, in the fermentation process, you know, we use three factors in which every master blender has to be on top of watching, making sure it's perfect all the time. So every time that you duplicate a blend, always consistency. And those three things is humidity, heat, or temperature. Let's put it that way. Not heat. Temperature, and the other one is time. And that's the three things that you work every time that you working in the fermentation process. So it's very important to make sure that when you work with the correct master blenders, you know how they do things. So when you're able to create, you make sure that they will do the great job to duplicate it over time, and that's one of the key things.
So after smoking these churritos for a while, smoking the full cigar, for some reason I feel like I'm lighting up a 6x60. Like my mouth was just not like
It seems
used
enormous,
to
right?
smoking at that size. It's only a 52 ring gauge, but it like
It does
completely
seem like a
changes
6 by 60, yeah.
what I've been smoking on, right? You know.
There's so much balance though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, remember now you're listening to the symphony.
Mhm.
Before you were only listen to each of the instruments
Yeah.
by itself. So now everything start aligning together to create a bit of symphony.
Right.
What's the wrapper on the Blue Sapphire?
That we jalapa. It's a Maduro Natural jalapa.
That's really nice coloring.
Oh, beautiful color. That's it's I mean, Plasencia. That's they know what they're doing.
Yeah. So Enrique, question for you, because you do something unique when you light your cigars, and when we first met, I remember this very pointedly because you were talking me through this process, and I was already doing it, and I remember you looked at me like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I do this thing." And you said, no. I know what you're doing, but why are you doing it? And I started to explain. And you said, no. I understand, but I've never seen anyone else do that. And then I saw you doing it. Can you talk through for the audience a little bit about that? Because I always get questions when I do it, when I'm at a cigar festival or at a cigar event. Maybe tell our audience a little bit about it.
Well, you're talking about when I always like to light my cigars and then cut it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's something very unique. And actually, I did not create that one. It's a friend of my father, a Cubano. He told me that. He's like, Enrique, when you cut a cigar and then you light it, there's always some smoke that escapes from the top. You know, the chimney effect it's open in the top, so there will be some smoke. You know, it might not escape all the way through, but it's going to get to a point. You know, it's you know, you keep lit it will go up. When you make sure you light the cigar, you know, starting from the outside to the inside, and you know the cigar log does help you that one with the wrapper just around the edge. It helps to light the cigar around the edges, starting with the wrapper, and have the patience. And you are in a place in which is not a wentty, in which of course is easy to be lighted a cigar to it. And once the cigar is well lit, then you do the cut, and it doesn't matter what kind of cut you use. Whether you use straight cut, or B cut, or whatever you prefer to it. That first experience is going to be the most clean experience ever in the blend. So it's something I always like to recommend it. I know for some people it's not, you know, I don't want to be patient and wait. That's fine. It's your cigar. You can do whatever you want to it. Yeah. But if you do have the patience and you have the time to be able to do it the right way, it will definitely give you a different perspective in the experience that you're having. And remember, in the end, that's what we're doing here. Is experience, memories.
Yeah.
That's the key of it. That's why we enjoy cigars. It's because all those flavors, all that atmosphere, the concept of being relaxed, being able to enjoy a great moment. It's there. It's for you to enjoy it.
So, and what's funny about that is also not your father, but in Cuba is where I also learned how to do that. Having smoked for many years, I just there was this older Cuban gentleman, and he basically walked me through it the exact same way, and he said, "Try it, just try it while you're here, just try doing that." And that was, oh gosh, more than 15 years ago, 16, 17 years ago, and I've just that's how I've always done it ever since, and it was a good memory when I first met you because it was just such a funny thing that that you were talking about it while I was doing it, and we had that little exchange, and
Yeah.
I always remember that it was fun experience.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoy that. And let me ask you, now you do it the way?
Yeah, I've been doing it for 16, 17 years,
Beautiful.
and anytime I'm at a festival, it's funny because people pick up on it right away. They'll see what I'm doing, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I do this thing," and I walk them through it, and I explain it to them, and I said, it's not if there's no right or wrong way. It's just this is something that I've learned for a little bit of a cleaner initial start to the cigar, and I explain why. And inevitably, guys try to they'll try it, but the questions they get, well, was the cigar still burn? I said, yeah, if you do it right, as soon as you cut it, the cigar is burning and ready to go. You can start
Yeah.
smoking immediately. You don't have to fuss with it. You don't have to touch it up. You don't have to puff on it with a torch. It's just ready to go. And it's just such a reflex now. Like I don't even think about it. I just start
Yeah.
doing it while I'm having a conversation, but it leads to fun conversations I'm in a group of
Okay.
other cigar smokers.
Well, you will be surprised. I had some people in the cigar lounge and doing the way the same way you do it. And you always get some people give you the look and say, "Oh, Jesus, a Rocky here," or some people say, "Oh, sorry, sir, you forgot to cut the cigar." And like, well, sir, thank you very much, but I had not forgot to cut my cigar. I had to cut it afterwards.
Yeah.
And they look at me like, "Why would you do that?" Then I explained it, and they're like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. Let me see next time I try it."
Yeah.
So, but does anybody else here does it that way, or we only two?
I think just the two
it's
of you
just
guys.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now you have something a little bit more different to play with. To
Yep.
see if it makes a difference for you or not. It's only
Yeah.
way to find out.
That's such an appreciation for a blended cigar after doing this.
Yeah.
And then I realized I can't do this myself.
Uh,
Yeah, I don't think I have. I mean, I don't think I have the blending skills, right? Like, I mean, I could. It's one thing to taste through these specific nine, components, but I will have no idea. I mean, it gets so much more than that, right? And binder, which wrapper to use. Like, I have ideas as to what I want to do, but gosh, like you were saying, there's got to be so much trial and error. And finally, when you get the leaves that you want, I'm sure leaf placement and the size of the cigar has a lot to do with it, right? Which I have no idea what that
completely,
looks like, you know.
I
completely.
remember Seth and I were at a tasting, and excuse me, Seth will remember this very well. So we had two cigars, and we weren't told anything about the cigars. We were just told to smoke them. So it was cigar A and cigar B. Went through the tasting and put our hands up. Who prefers cigar A? Who prefers cigar B? And I can't remember. Seth was A and I was B, or I was A and Seth was B. And he said, "Well, they're the same cigar. It's the exact same cigar. All that's happened is the wrapper and the binder, exact same wrapper and binder, have been flipped between A and B. But other than that, exactly the same cigar." And the two of us had very strong preferences between the two as to which one we thought was better, and they didn't taste the same. They
No,
tasted
they're different.
very different. So
But
despite the fact that all the filler tobacco was exactly the same and the binder was exactly the same and the wrapper was exactly the same, the placement of those two tobaccos changed the entire flavor experience.
of course, and so they were not the same cigars.
Yeah. That just that really, to June's point, that really just sort of blew my mind that I would never have considered that changing the placement of the binder and the wrapper would have that pronounced of a flavor impact. But it was, and I wouldn't say it was night and day, but it was substantial enough to say these are not the same cigar, despite the
Of
fact
course.
that, yeah,
Well, you were right. They were not the same cigars. That's understandable. I mean, they were using the same tobacco. If you
Yeah.
would have used the same tobacco that you use in the binder as a long filler, it will
Right.
give you a different perspective too.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And to blend these for consistency time and time again,
Mm.
that's a whole
Right.
different art, I'm sure. Yeah.
That's when you have to work with great master blenders. And to be honest, I cannot take the credit for that one. That will be the master blenders and the factories that we will work with, and they do the hard work. Make sure because the master blender, he knows there's a lot more sunlight this year than the last year. So of course the raw material is going to be a slight different than that. So they have to find a way how they're going to play with those three factors, in which humidity, temperature, and time, to able to balance it again to make it sure that it's the most close possible as at the last batch.
Right.
And that's a great demanding work, because you have to be there 24 hours, 7 days a week to able to do that. Because if there's one day specific in which suddenly the temperature rises, then you cannot be using the tobacco anymore for the blend. So then they have to know that, and you have to trust them. And when they tell you, the tobacco is not giving me what we're looking for, because I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's work with the time, patient. So, but you need a tobacco. Yes, I do need the cigars to be ready. There's no doubt. But the worst thing I can do, or the most irresponsible thing to do, is to come out with a production that is not ready in the market. That because the market will definitely know. I mean, most of the people that smoke cigars, they might not be a master blender. They don't have to. I enjoy music. I don't play any instrument. But I do enjoy music very much. I don't need to play instrument to be able to enjoy music.
Right.
I like to get the last part of it and enjoy it very as the most inspiration moment. But I don't have to be the other way around. Same with people that enjoy cigars. They don't need to go all the way or blending and doing the process of fermentation, curing the tobacco and all this. They want to get the last part of it and say, you know what, I love it, and you know what, I don't love it. That's a great it, and it's our job to make sure they do love it all the time. And when they do, make it consistent all the time. They sure that every time they light it, it's going to be the same experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I always said most of the people can create a good blend at least once in their lifetime. Because most of the people, not everybody, most of the people make it consistent over years of years of years of years, or decades of generations.
Yeah.
That narrows the work to a few in the world.
Yeah. And I imagine it's difficult when, so let's say you create a blend, let's say you create Blue Sapphire back in 2016, right? But if you're trying to recreate that blend off the same, same shape 2 years later, you also need to remember what it smoked like when you created that original blend back in 2016, right?
Of course.
So
Yeah.
you also need to have that muscle memory and that knowledge of what exactly it should be like,
Yeah.
Of course.
right?
But
So
that's part of in the blending. It's taking care of consideration. It's okay. You're gonna create this blend, or we think we got the blend right. Okay, now let's duplicate it over time. That means that this batch of raw material is gonna go up in the pipeline, but at this specific time, there's other raw material is gonna start doing in the pipeline as well. So now you have multiple pipelines of raw materials going in the same alley, making sure that everything, all the process on each of them is completely perfect. So every time that whatever comes out of the pipeline, everything is consistent, everything is perfect. But how you do that always has to be working in those different pipelines and make sure. And the pipeline doesn't go only with the tobacco. You put in a fermentation process. It starts even before you prepare the land. So
Yeah.
it's you have to always make sure that part. That's why if I 15 to Blue Sapphire, the one we enjoy right now, it's manufactured by Plasencia. If I get the blend, which I have the blend perfectly, read it down, and if I go to any other factory in the world, even let's say anyone in Esteli, and I said, can you please duplicate here? Here's the blend. Most likely they cannot duplicate. It's going to be
Yeah.
almost impossible to duplicate. It's almost really hard for the same factory to duplicate it.
Yeah.
Now imagine changing factory. That means changing the farm, the process, the preparing of the land, the rotation of the crop, all those things. It's going to be almost impossible. So you have to stay married with the factory and with those master blender, and you have to be working with them day by day, consistency, to make sure that everything is smooth as it is.
Right.
Like June said, it must be challenging, because the Blue Sapphire came out in 2016, and to sort of control that drift from where it started to make sure it's still, where it started, to control that drift. It reminds me of sommeliers that do wines where they just constantly have to be tasting the tobacco to make sure that it doesn't drift away from where it started, and that skill is just so amazing to be able to do that year over year over year.
Yes, and it's a fun skill to be working with.
Mhm.
Enrique, you mentioned that working with multiple factories. How do you choose, what factories you want to work for? Is there like for a certain blend that you want to put together, a certain factory has a strength that you're kind of looking for that, or how do you choose on what you're doing there?
It's very interesting. First of all, when I work with a factory, we have to trust each other.
Mm.
Because I do the blending. I in the end I decide this is the blend that we're going to be using, all that. But they have to trust them, that make sure that all the process, all the different pipeline is correctly, and they're being very responsible of each of the process the right way. So that's one of the key things is trust. I mean, I think that's the beginning of any relationship in work-wise and anything, whatever you do. So that's one of the things. Then, knowing what did they use or how the process they use, it's for me, it's the fun part of it, because now let me see what can I do with that, or how can I create a magic with their process, and something that when you try it, you scream like wow. And that's the fun part of it. It's like being a rock singer, and it's like, let me play with this band first. They have different tempo. Then let me play with that one. Because it's completely different. Because they're more into guitar, less with the drummers or whatever. Everything changes completely. But able to sing each of the different bands and create something beautiful. For me, it's a beautiful challenge, and I love that challenge.
Right.
And
Mhm.
of course, being a Virgo, it doesn't help that much aspect.
Yeah.
In a way, though, it must be a little intimidating, because you talk about AJ, right, and you talk about Essencia, and both of them have just such a just an enormous amount of tobacco, right? Both of them have such an amazing amount of tobacco to work with, and it must be almost intimidating to go in there and see the tobacco and go, there's so much tobacco to work with. To do that process and narrow it down is, yeah.
But also remember, we also work with, for example, Barrera Cigars, which is a small factory in
Right.
Estelí, Nicaragua, and now they do have the farms as well. So now
Right.
we can control a lot more of the pipelines of the creation as well. So it's doesn't matter if you have a big factory or a small factory in areas. If you know how to work with them, you're always going to create something beautiful in that aspect. with Barrera, we make cachitos. You know, you had the cachito original. I'm sure you guys have tried it before,
Mm-hmm.
but the one it's about to be shipped to the United States and Europe. It was the cachito Connecticut. No,
Yeah.
I never worked with Connecticut because Connecticut for me had never been that much or my cup of tea. It's more like a blowing smoke in the aspect. But
Right.
when we did create this cachito Connecticut, and which is 1 out of 5 distilled strength, but the flavor and the
Yes.
complexity for that little one, it's mind blowing. And when people try it, like, oh my god, this is beautiful. Doesn't matter if you like full body cigars or Mario cigar, that is a perfect blend. But it took me around 18 months to perfection it because I had to go deeper with them to see what tobacco do they have, how do the process, and start figuring it out what goes good with what. And once we got that figured out, how can we duplicate it and can that be duplicated in a responsible way? So it's a lot of things put together in one scenario, but it's fun. That's the fun part of it.
Yeah.
For me, that's exciting part of it.
Yeah, we had a chance to smoke that at the trade show, and it was a
Mhm.
it was a wonderful cigar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of end the day there and just sit down with one of those and coffee because that was just that was a great experience.
You know, and the interesting part, cachito. You know, I don't know if you guys are familiar with what cachito means.
Mhm.
You know, a cacho, it's a horn. You know, like
Wow.
the cow is the horn.
Yeah.
Cachito, it's what it means. It's a small horn.
Yeah.
So in Latin America, you know, in Nicaragua, but you also use a lot in Latin America. It's dame un cachito. It's like give me a small one.
Okay.
It's a normal thing we talk about now in cigars in general. But that's how we come out with cachito. We blend it specific for that vitola for that size. It's 4x50, and it was perfect. The original is, oh my god, it's incredible. It's a 3 out of 5 Scottish strain. Now the new cachito, the cachito Connecticut, it's 1 out of 5. It was perfect the way it is. So and you always have. Sometimes you don't have the time, and and we could go back to the vitola in that aspect now. You know, if you have a lot more time, yeah, of course, I will grab a Churchill, I will grab a Salomon. That was perfect. That was going to be almost 2 hours enjoying a cigar for me. But sometimes I only have 30 or 40 minutes. But
Mhm.
I want those 30 or 40 minutes to be a great experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how we create cachitos. Something
Mhm.
a little bit more smaller or long filler premium tobacco, but blend specific for that vitola, for that
Yeah.
blend. So how you guys enjoying the Blue Sapphire?
Very good.
Very
Whole new
nice.
appreciation for it actually.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I'd be hard pressed to reverse engineer the tobacco even after trying the 9 components. It'd be very, very challenging. I'd be hard pressed to even put one of the tobaccos, but I think it's interesting to, as you say, put the flavor of each of those tobaccos in my brain and then come back to the sapphire and go, you know, I think I taste this, I think I taste this, but just the harmony of all of them together is much more in my brain than when I started.
And that's the fun part of the exercise. Able to, you know, let's do it from scratch. You know, first decompose it, and then we compose it, and see how that goes. So it's definitely a good experience.
For you, and when you're coming up with a blend, how do you know? Because there has to be this aspect of, as a perfectionist, you want to keep tweaking and playing. So when do you know? You know, when you sort of set it down and say, okay, I'm happy, I'm satisfied with where's that moment for you?
You know, it's like remember, I'm a little bit more artistic in that aspect. So I'm looking for something. I cannot taste it. I cannot see it. I cannot feel the aroma. But I know it's there. It's looking for. It's the most important part of it. You know, it's like I remember one of the interview with Picasso. Because someone they ask you, so what are you looking for when you? I'm not looking for anything. I find it, and that's for me. That's what I do. Once you find it, and you're like, wait a second, that's it. That's exactly what we're looking for. And that is a crucial moment because you have all those things said before, but you have never experienced it, but you know it's there. And sometimes, you know what? It does not appear. And it's like getting you gotta do a sculpture. You get the big rock of marble, and you start blam bang with a hammer first, and a little by little you start sculpture into what it is. But it gets to a point you're like, this is not what we're looking for. You throw it away and you break it and you start over again, and that's what I had to do as a blender.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's some blends in which I've been working for over a decade, and it's like, not quite what we're looking for. Find it always one of the most exciting part of it.
All right, we're getting close to the 2 hour mark. Did you guys have any more questions for Enrique, or we can
2 hours
wrap it up so we
already?
don't take this whole evening?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've gotten through a
Time
lot.
beautifully
We
spent.
smoked through the 9 churritos and almost halfway through this Blue Sapphire.
Well, that's a beautiful when you have a great tobacco and great friendships together. Time
Yeah.
flies.
Yeah.
It's called the magic of cigars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Here we go.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah, no,
time,
really,
I
thank you.
mean, the few times that we've done this, my takeaway is, I want to do more. I want to go down to Nicaragua and spend a week and do this for like a week and capture videos and do a write up, and because I think that's the true enriching part, right? Is not just a couple of hours, right? There's so much more to be discussed that um, the small population of cigar geeks will love to
Yeah.
witness. So
Of course, and I would recommend you something even more of that. It's that don't only go to Nicaragua to Steli to get this experience, or because it's definitely going to be a lovely experience because you understand a lot more and you appreciate a lot more of it. But take a few days off and enjoy Nicaragua as itself. You will understand a lot more of our culture, the way
Yeah.
we live, the way how we enjoy life, and you will appreciate a lot more what we create in cigars or anything else that we do in Nicaragua. Because that state of mind, it will be a lot more easy later on to understand it. And in the
Yeah.
end, remember, a cigar, it's a cigar. Some better others, some want more to keep a cup of tea than others, but it's a cigar. What it entrains a lot more to it are those memories that stays with you for the rest of your life. That's actually it's the only thing that you actually it can take with you. Nobody else can take that away from you. Those memories will stay with you, and those memories, if we can combine it for the places on the people in which they do the hard work of making sure the cigars every time is perfect, you appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Enrique, we want to thank you very much for your generosity and taking us through this journey with these churritos and the Blue Sapphire. Like we said, it's been great. Time flew by for us tonight, and the experience was amazing. So again, thank you very much for this.
Uh, Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
thank
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 you.
you,
you, Ariel.
Enrique.
Gentlemen, it has been a true pleasure, and I hope this will do this more often, and maybe next time, not even with a camera in front, we can do it in person. That would
There you go.
definitely go.
Yeah.
It would be. But remember, there's three rules in our company, and I always like to remind of those three rules. So, rule number one: relax. It's very important. Life it's a hustle. It's you have to find a moment to get everything stopped and relax for the moment every time you light a cigar. The other one, enjoy.
Mm.
Rule number three, I think it's the most important part of it. Never forget rule number one and number two. It's always about relax and enjoy. The world will continue spending after you finish the cigar. If it's not a true emergency, that can wait. Then you ready to take that reins again and do whatever you need to do. But in that moment, it's your moment to relax and enjoy it.
Yep. Well said.
Exactly.
Mhm.
All right. We want to thank everybody that tuned in, watching, everybody that's going to watch this recorded or listen to it on podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I'm looking forward to see you guys all in the next formula. Take care. We'll see you next time.